I do not write adult romance. I do, however, write about things like racism and gun control and abortion rights and gay rights and lots of things that make children and teenagers think for themselves. And I think that's what's kind of scary about my books, in particular to this woman.
Okay, Alyssa, I hope you have your Petty Brew coffee in hand. She does!
It is in hand.
She does. We have some real fuckery we need to get into this week. So, as we've talked about on this show, and as a lot of advocates have talked about, the end of Roe v. Wade doesn't just mean the end of abortion care. The end of abortion care is a huge deal and is a violation of the human rights of half of the people in this country. But that's not all that is going to happen as a result of this. Right now, we're seeing some really bad effects, and I'm going to say, I hope I'm wrong, but this is only going to be the first of many. A hospital in Idaho is going to stop providing pregnancy care entirely.
It's unfucking
entirely.
Yeah.
There's no more obstetric care. A North Idaho hospital will stop offering pregnancy care this spring, due in part to an Idaho law that criminalizes abortion care. Actually, Idaho has several laws on the books that make it difficult for doctors to practice OBGYN medicine. And so the hospital announced on Friday that they're just not going to provide any services to pregnant people anymore. Bonner General, which serves much of rural North Idaho, lost pediatric coverage and has seen a decrease in yearly deliveries. But I did look into how many they were delivering every year, and it's not like 5. It was like 200 something.
It's a lot in a rural part of the state.
In a rural part of the state, they're not having a baby born every day, but that's like 200 families. That's 200 women. So there's been a decrease in yearly deliveries, but that has been compounded by Idaho laws that criminalize abortions. And the hospital has said physicians have just left the state rather than deal with them. And so the hospital's just not going to provide obstetric care anymore. Yeah.
That is... I mean, look, I understand why the doctors are leaving the state. They don't want to put themselves in a position where they are damned if they do and damned if they don't. And also, Erin, this comes on the heels of the Idaho State Supreme Court in January upholding multiple laws that amount to near total abortion bans, only permitting, this is one of my favorites, only permitting defenses in the court for abortions performed in documented cases of rape, incest, or to save a pregnant person's life. Got to document that rape, Erin.
Here's the thing. We recently had findings come out about this country's maternal mortality rate.
Yep.
It continues to be egregious, and it continues to be rising. I think it's something like 16 times what it is in Australia or something. It's egregious.
Bad.
Like we are far and away a country that is more deadly to pregnant women than any other country that has the infrastructure that we have, right?
Right.
Couldn't all pregnancies be considered a threat to the life of the pregnant person? I mean, realistically, it is like you will be maimed by a pregnancy, regardless of how well it goes. Like a perfect pregnancy and a perfect delivery fucks you up. Like, I don't understand, like, a threat to the pregnant person's life. I feel like there's an argument that could be made that every pregnancy theoretically can threaten your life.
And how does making women drive 50 miles in some cases in this part of Idaho to see an OBGYN not a threat to their life?
Yeah. If you're in labor, it's going to be kind of difficult to drive. 50 miles. It's going to be difficult to drive like 5 to 10 miles, much more difficult to drive 50 miles. It's really bad. And as a result of what's happening in North Idaho, it's impacting people who are looking for care in the surrounding areas as well, because it's jamming up those clinics, right? Women still need obstetric care regardless. You know, they're not going to not get it. So what they're doing is driving to Spokane County in Washington State. The Planned Parenthoods there have seen an increase in patients coming across the border. This is for like obstetric care, right? Like screenings and stuff. Traveling for obstetric care also leads to worse health outcomes. It's really bad
Makes sense.
right now. Yeah, I mean, Yes, of course it makes sense. But here's another thing, we're seeing doctors fleeing Idaho because Idaho is making it difficult for doctors to practice there. I can see a domino effect happening in every state that's doing this. What young woman would want to move there? What young person
who
in
would
their
want to move
reproductive
there?
years?
And who would want to be a doctor there? I mean, Erin, imagine if I were your doctor and you were in distress and you were pregnant. What are my choices?
Yeah.
I help you because that is what I want to do. That is what the oath I have taken as a doctor has told me to do, knowing that if one person in the hallway or your neighbor tells someone that I helped you, that I could go to jail, lose my license, and, go to jail. So
yeah. I mean, these states are legislating themselves out of existence because as long as there are other places that people can go, other places that doctors can go and practice, other places that young people can move that have a less terrifying outlook for their health, their ability to access healthcare. They're just imagine if you were a college student, right? Not even a doctor. Imagine if you were thinking about going to college. And you have narrowed it down to CU Boulder and the University of Idaho, right?
Easy choice.
Gonzaga or Boise State or whatever. Everything else is equal. Same, FAFSA package, everything like that.
Yep.
If you're a person who might possibly need abortion care, or if you are anti-abortion for yourself, obstetric care, you're going to go to a place where that's available, which is Colorado. Right. Eventually these states are it's going to take a generation for these states to be so chock full of old people and no families that and extreme poverty that they're going to have to ship people in or coerce people in. What's your long game, Idaho? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know that you can drop the income tax or the property tax low enough to make it a palatable place to want to go and move to, frankly.
Yeah. I think that, yes, there's no amount of money that can buy a person going to a place where they are in physical harm's way, all the time because of their anatomy.
Yeah. Right.
Wyoming, speaking of states that are legislating themselves right out of relevance, Wyoming has made abortion pills illegal. And thus, basically all abortions are illegal in Wyoming at this point. The abortion pill ban that was signed by Governor Mark Gordon would take effect on July 1st. If an abortion provider in the state sues over it, it could be delayed. But yeah, abortion is now completely illegal in Wyoming, which shouldn't be a state.
It shouldn't be a state. But if anyone ever doubted that these Republican majorities in state legislatures were going to take their majorities out for a spin, here is the proof.
This is exactly what happens. Yeah. So there's more stuff going on in other states. In Utah, Utah became the first state this month to pass a law banning abortion clinics altogether. So
yeah, there's that.
So you have to go to a hospital. Yeah, you have to get a hospital to get abortion care now, which is unnecessary.
Unnecessary. In South Carolina, the GOP-dominated lawmakers are debating what kind of ban to try next after a ban on abortions after 6 weeks was rejected by the state's top court. I'm glad they're putting so much of their brain power into solving the real problems in this country. And
they're
in
doing
Minnesota,
nothing. They're doing nothing.
They're doing nothing but sitting around like witches over a cauldron being like, and now what can we do? It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
There are so many problems in this country. They could be helping people instead of just terrorizing people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Florida. Let's not forget about Florida, although I wish we
Florida.
could. Yeah. I mean, not fuck Floridians, but fuck Florida in terms of its government and all that stuff. Lawmakers are trying to figure out what bans to put into place. Florida has previously banned abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, which is much looser than other GOP-controlled states. There's a new measure to ban them after 6 weeks that's been advancing through the legislature, and Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to sign that ban if it gets to him. Did you know Ron DeSantis is only 5'9"? Unrelated. He's a
I
short,
didn't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got bitchy Chihuahua energy. So that makes sense. Yeah. Minnesota's doing good stuff, though. Let's talk a little bit about
Minnesota. Last year, Democrats had good success in Minnesota. They have control of the government, and the governor this year signed additional protections for abortion access into law. And Erin, there's even a little bit of good news out of Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh. It's like the bar is so low for good news. It is like if this news did not exist, the news would be so like unfathomably bad.
Yeah.
This is slightly better than unfathomably bad.
This is, it's a very low bar. The Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled earlier this week that its state constitution does guarantee the right to terminate a pregnancy that threatens a patient's life. Its 5-4 decision invalidated a provision of Oklahoma's near-total abortion ban and preserved the possibility of finding a more expansive right to reproductive autonomy in a future case. Erin, the ruling allows physicians to provide an abortion, quote, at any point in the pregnancy whenever they determine with, quote, a reasonable degree of medical certainty that denying care would endanger the woman's life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the way it was previously was you had to be like in imminent danger of dying in order to obtain an abortion. Right. You had to be like about to die. Now a doctor can say, hey, this person has a ruptured uterus and eventually she will be in imminent danger of death. Can we just take care of this now before it's like a medical emergency? So there were lawmakers who wanted to make that person wait.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they wanted. They're like, you just sit tight. You just sit tight. It'll be definitive soon.
So under the previous law where death must be imminent, if a doctor provided an abortion before the patient was at sufficient risk of death, they faced a $100,000 fine and 10 years imprisonment.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. Okay, that's really, really bleak. But the Oklahoma Supreme Court is the second Republican-controlled state this month to find a right to life-saving abortions under its state constitution, following North Dakota Supreme Court last week. So if you're probably going to die from a pregnancy, then you can have an abortion in those states.
Sounds like these justices were really concerned about the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future haunting them. So they were like, let's open the door a little.
I'm just going to say, I've said this before, but like, sex isn't that good. It's not like, if let's say I'm a woman in North Dakota and I'm like, am I going to have like a sexual relationship with a man knowing that the risk is that if something bad happens to me, I have very little recourse to save my own life? It's like not, I would die for sex good, you know?
No.
I think that I would just, if I were in those places, I would be like, you know what? Celibacy for now until we get into a place that has some reasonable laws. I don't know. All right. We have some good education news. The governor of Minnesota doing more good stuff.
Making sure the kids can have food, Erin.
Did you see the picture of this, Alyssa?
It was adorable. It's
adorable. Governor Tim Walz is an adorable governor as far as governors go, though. He's an adorable guy.
An adorable governor. He was an adorable congressman. We're happy for this adorable person to be just doing good things.
Yeah, he signed a law on Friday that provides breakfast and lunches at no charge to students at participating schools in the state of Minnesota. Minnesota is the 4th state in the country to do so. That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And you know what? In reading up on this, I had no idea. It's one of the upsides of this legislation that he's provided is that all the kids get the same meals. I had no idea that there was a world in which if you were a student with a subsidized meal, you may get different food than the other kids. That seems traumatic. So anyway, this is all the same food for everybody, which seems absolutely like the right fucking thing to do.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's crazy that kids would be getting different meals than the other kids if they were. That's not good at all. And you know, there's been a lot of talk about protecting children, you know, across the aisle. This is like a measure to actually protect children. Food insecurity causes like a ton of problems for kids. Like nutritional deficiencies obviously cause physical health problems, but anxiety, mental health problems a lot of times can be traced back to kids being food insecure when they're growing up. And so this is a really great move. It's like such a no-brainer for states to just do this.
Yeah,
if they care about
just
children.
do this.
But they mostly don't. Oh my gosh. Okay. Have you looked at Twitter recently? Has he been indicted yet?
No. As of our logging on here, he had not been indicted. But my sister is down in the city, and she's keeping watch for us, Erin.
Oh, good. So you'll get a text right away.
Yeah.
I am at this point. I'm glad that there is a indictment coming down the pike for him. I kind of would like to see a curveball happen and another one happen. Like everyone's camped out outside the Manhattan courthouse, and then actually it's Fulton County, Georgia that happens first. Right. I'm like tired of I'm tired of the fact that this news story lets Donald Trump be in the center of the news once again. I just want him to like get charged and then get the fuck out. I'm so tired of him.
I heard yesterday on Caitlin Collins on CNN talking about, and she usually has quite reliable Trump sources, that he is literally prepping his perp walk. That he's like thinking, and you know what? And you know it's true. That he's like, how am I going to look? How am I going to play this? I mean, go away.
Can you blame him?
Can this be done, please?
Can you blame him though? I mean, this is one thing where I'm like, okay, I get it. If I were going to take a perp walk and I knew the entire world was watching, I would be like, how am I going to walk? What do I do with my arms? Nobody ever taught me what to do with my arms. What do I do? I mean, Donald Trump does not know what to do with his arms.
It's true. He does not know what to do with his arms. Well, you know what? Hopefully we'll see if he's learned how to do anything with his arms.
I think we'll know that an indictment is imminent when representatives from the Trump organization can be seen installing an escalator outside of the Manhattan courthouse. So he doesn't have to walk at all. He can just stand there.
Yes.
I think that would be really narratively satisfying. Starts with an escalator ride, ends with an escalator ride. Eventually that escalator will take him all the way down to hell. Quick toast before we take a break and get to our interview. I'm really excited for this interview this week.
This is a great interview and also a great toast.
Yes. Okay. Who are we going to toast, Alyssa?
We're going to toast Barbara Lee. Erin, do you know why we're toasting Barbara Lee today?
I do, but I want to hear it from you.
Okay. So 20 years ago this week, America invaded Iraq, and she was the only no vote 20 years ago.
She was right. She was right.
Pretty prescient.
We should make her, I mean, in a way, she is the ultimate news witch, right?
Totally.
The Iraq War cost $2.4 trillion, thousands and thousands of innocent lives. It just a complete disgrace. And there are so many people that are so prominent in political gabbing that were so pro the war, like, and they just kind of, you know, when you're a political pundit, you just get to be like really fucking wrong and keep having.
But not Barbara Lee.
Not Barbara Lee. She
was
one
of the rightest bitches in the game.
One of perhaps the rightest bitch in the game, and we have to give her a toast this week.
Yes.
And also that was really brave for her to be the only one to say no. Do you remember how weird it felt back then?
Yes.
The vibes were off. They were bad vibes.
It was bad vibes. I mean, it was a scary time.
How did you feel about the invasion when it happened? Just like full disclosure, were you pro, were you anti?
You know, I don't really, to be totally fair, I don't remember having a real position on it. I just remember being scared by it. That's like thinking that this was, you know, you invade someone, sometimes they retaliate. You don't know how they're going to retaliate. You know, and also don't forget back then people were still like really confused about how 9/11 happened. So different time.
And there was like, different people were being fed like Judith Miller columns and stuff. Exactly. I remember I was in college at a conservative university, and I remember having a debate with a guy who was a friend of mine who was a poli-sci major. And I was like, I don't know, I think this is like really bad and I don't think we should do it. I don't want to go to war with Iraq. I don't think they did 9/11 and this is weird. And he was like, he gave me this, I just still remember. I was so uncomfortable with the invasion. And I remember he gave me this really smug mansplainy lecture. And I was like, afterwards, I was like, I guess maybe he must know what he's talking about. Maybe he knows more than me. But no, All we knew was
No.
the information we were being fed, and it didn't pass the smell test. Barbara Lee knew it. I knew it. You knew it. More people should have known it. What a mistake.
And here we are.
Here we are. Let's take a break. When we come back, an interview with author Jodi Picoult. And welcome back, Alyssa. When I tell you, every single woman I've told about this week's interview guest, every single one has been like, oh my God.
Are you kidding? Squeal like a stuck pig. All of them.
It is squeals all the way down. Our guest today is a #1 New York Times bestselling author of 28 novels, which is crazy, including My Sister's Keeper, Wish You Were Here, in 19 Minutes. In addition to being the newest star of Book Talk, I'm going to say, her work has been translated into 34 languages and sold 40 million books. Her work, 40 million. That's a lot. Her work touches on issues from school shootings to LGBTQ rights to the Holocaust to abortion, which means she's landed on a few banned book lists. Good thing she's not shy about hitting back. Jodi Picoult, welcome to Hysteria.
Thanks for having me.
So what's it been like watching your books get banned? And why do you think your books are on so many banned lists?
Well, so my books have been banned, honestly, for years, and they kind of go on and off the banned lists. In the past year, there has been a proliferation of book banning, and in particular, banning my book. The one that most often is banned is 19 Minutes. The reason it has been banned more often is because it wound up in a binder that the Moms for Liberty have, and they're the ones who are basically, they're a national organization with local chapters, and they provide these binders to people in their chapters who then go to their schools and school boards and say, these books are problematic. And depending on where they are, they challenge the book. Sometimes they don't even have to tell why the book is problematic. They just basically can remove it from shelves. So I've been used to 19 Minutes being banned. Like, this has happened, 12 times in the past 6 months. But then last week, I got an email from PEN America, which tracks book banning, and they wanted me to know that in Martin County, Florida, 20 of my books had been banned at once. And I kind of went, what? What's going on here? One parent had actually made the request to ban a variety of books. There were 92 in total. I have actually seen the forms that she filled out in which she admits fully that she has not read the books. She's challenging them because to her, they are considered to be adult romance and they don't belong on a high school bookshelf. This is very interesting to me. First of all, more than half of the books that she has challenged do not even have a single kiss in them. Second of all, I do not write adult romance. I do, however, write about things like racism and gun control and abortion rights and gay rights and lots of things that make children and teenagers think for themselves. And I think that's what's kind of scary about my books, in particular to this woman. Of course, I am by far not the most affected author when it comes to book bans. Usually it is BIPOC and LGBTQ authors who are targeted, but it's for the same reasons. It's because something in this book strikes a nerve with a parent. And I have to say, it was not a great week. Suddenly I wound up on Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow like the same day. And, I didn't plan to become a vocal spokesperson against book banning, but that role has kind of fallen into my lap right now. And I am more than happy to wave that banner. We have seen what happens when people don't speak out against the book banners. We've seen it historically. And to be completely honest, it is not pretty. So we need to take action now.
Jodi, even though you write about a wide array of very serious topics, your work has been a little pigeonholed into the chicklit category. What does chicklit mean to you, and what does it do to the way a writer's work is received? Given your success, do you give a shit?
No, I do. Alyssa, that's actually a really interesting question in light of book banning. Mm-hmm. This parent said, my books are adult romance. I do not write adult romance. Look, there's nothing wrong with adult romance. There are lots of people who read it and use it to escape, and that is awesome. That's what books do. Adult romance is not usually what you find on a high school shelf, or a middle school shelf. The truth is that when people say you write chick lit, they assume these are books for women, about women. Chick lit usually has a connotation of being light and fluffy, a beach read, something like a romance, contemporary. Again, chick lit's awesome. I mean, I read chick lit on vacation. I love it. I have many friends who write chick lit. It just doesn't happen to be what I write. I write about moral and ethical dilemmas. And when people say you write chick lit, what they really mean is that the writer has a vagina.
Yeah.
That the writer is a woman, and that's problematic. That assumption that a woman can only write for other women, that's wrong. Half my fan mail comes from men. And there are many men who read women authors. It's true that there are many men who do not. We know that when you actually crunch the numbers, women tend to read both men and women, and men tend to read men. Well, why is that? Could it possibly be because we're all labeled chick lit authors?
Jodi, have any of the books you've written proven particularly prescient in hindsight? You mentioned 19 Minutes. Are there any that you look back on and wish you could change or wish that you could update?
There aren't any that I wish I could change or update. But many of my books have, I think, proved prescient at times. 19 Minutes is certainly one of them. My Sister's Keeper, in many ways, was very cutting edge about the idea of save your sibling. I would say the one that probably is the most painful for me is A Spark of Light. That is about abortion rights and was written about the last standing independent abortion clinic in Mississippi, which of course has now been shut down thanks to the Dobbs decision. And when I was doing the research for that book and when I was on tour for that book, I talked a lot about how close we were to having abortion overturned. And in many cases, I had, media saying to me, "Oh, aren't you overreacting?" And I feel a little like Cassandra, I was telling the truth, but it wasn't necessarily believed. And of course, that's where we are now. And I think it's worth saying, hey, I'm back again. And I'm telling you that if you don't stop these challenges to book bans, we're going to be in a very dark place very soon. Because the methodology that these groups are using to ban books in local school districts, it's right from the playbook of how they chipped away at abortion rights in this country to the point where we forced it to the Supreme Court and overturned Roe versus Wade. Mm-hmm. So, we know what's going to happen. We can actually see the history unfolding, and now is the time to act.
Mm-hmm. On this show, we call ourselves news witches because we were predicting it also, and I feel like Jodi, you would be in the news witch coven because you were right too, and we were told that we were being hysterical. I mean, the name of the show is ironic.
Hysteria.
Right. Mm-hmm. But, that's what we were hearing too. From the moment that Anthony Kennedy said he was stepping down, we were like, this is happening. And nobody, there are a lot of men who didn't believe us, and they have not apologized to us at this point. Our inbox is open. And so is Jodi's.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely it is. And I would love to be a member of this coven. It sounds right up my alley.
Well, you're in.
You're in.
That's it. That's happening.
Thanks.
You were just talking, book bans have been happening throughout history. What do you see as the next phase of this debate?
It's already happening. So what we're seeing look, here's what we know. When you want to control the way a nation thinks, you control what they read. Right. Nazi Germany did it very, very well. Okay. So that's where we're headed. We don't want to get there, but we already have seen the steps toward, that slow devolution in a fascist playbook, really. Basically, they start with book bans. We've already also seen challenges to school drama programs with content that is deemed, quote, inappropriate. Again, who is doing the deeming? Who has the credibility to say this is not appropriate for kids to do or for kids to put on as a show? So there's that. And then there's also this marginalization of BIPOC and LGBTQ authors, that otherness. So we're already separating out a group. I remember this quite well from the Holocaust, actually. Again, you're taking a group and making them different from you. You're creating that divide. We also are seeing curriculum challenges. That's happening all over Florida right now, where they're literally trying to erase history. In textbooks for elementary school kids, Pen America uploaded a beautiful example of this, where a description of Rosa Parks in language that could be used for a third grader now has no mention of her race.
Gosh.
So she literally now moves to the back of the bus because she's told she has to, and she doesn't want to move to the back of the bus, even though she's told to. But they don't tell you why that happened. Now, so you can actually change a textbook, but you cannot erase the history of enslavement in America, which we've done a very bad job of even reckoning with in this country. And, the fact that, for example, one of the 20 books of mine that was banned is The Storyteller. The Storyteller is about the Holocaust. It is not an erotic novel. Trust me. And, the problem in it is there is a Nazi in there who rapes a young woman. You know what? That happened. And you can take that off a shelf, but you're not going to change the fact that it happened. And you're not going to be able to tell us that Jews were not persecuted during the Holocaust, or that the Holocaust didn't happen. You are not going to be able to take books of BIPOC authors off shelves and tell us that their history didn't happen. It's false. And yet we're seeing all of this evolve. So it's happening really, really fast. We're talking about like in a matter of months, not years. Mm-hmm. And it's important to say too, that when it comes to book bans, a lot of people, you've heard, oh, it's a hoax. Oh, this isn't happening. So the thing about book bans is these legislatures that are passing laws that say if something is problematic, it should be taken off a shelf. Well, there's no process for review. So, for example, in Martin County, Florida, not only does the challenger not have to read the book and not have to give a reason for its removal, but then the principal has 15 days to talk to the challenger. After that, the media specialist has 15 days to talk to the challenger. And then the school board has 45 days to decide whether or not to keep this book on the shelf. If that does not happen in a timely fashion, guess what? The book stays off the shelf. Because in Florida, if you are a teacher or a media specialist who has something problematic on your shelf and you have not self-selected to remove it, you can be charged with a third-class felony. You can have a fine of up to $5,000, and you can lose a teaching license. So obviously, people are operating there. Educators are operating under a culture of fear. Mm-hmm. And it's important to recognize that as long as a book is removed from a shelf, even if it's, quote, under review, end quote, it still is off the shelf. It still is not accessible to kids who want to read it. That is a ban. Mm-hmm. Even if it's temporary, it is a ban.
Mm-hmm. Jodi, what are your favorite frequent flyers on the banned books lists that you've seen bandied about constantly? Are there any books that have been kicking around in your head that you just know would immediately get banned in today's political climate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Mad Honey, which is my most recent book, the only reason it hasn't been banned is because I don't think people in Florida know what it's about yet. But honestly, it is about trans issues. And so, that's just waiting to happen. And there are so many incredible books on the list right now that, look, should anyone be removing Beloved from a school library? No. Should anyone be taking away something like The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, or any of Nick Stone's books, or the Jason Reynolds books are phenomenal. And, and then you also have, of course, something like Genderqueer, which is usually held up as an example of what porn looks like on a school bookshelf. Well, there are a lot of kids in the world who see themselves for the first time reflected in the pages of a book in a library. And, Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop has put it best when she talks about windows and mirrors, that books hold mirrors up to kids who need to see themselves represented, and they create windows so that kids can escape when they need to. Mm. And, again, another fallacy that we hear is, oh, well, so your book is banned. they can get it at the public library. They can order it on Amazon. Yes, that is entirely true. If you have access to the public library, if you have transportation there, if you have a library card, if you have, an Amazon account. A lot of people do not have those resources. And for many kids in this country, a school library really is the first step to them receiving and accepting knowledge and broadening their minds. And taking all of these books off the shelves that show the experiences, lived experiences that might be different from a particular child's lived experience, that begins to rob that child of the potential for compassion and empathy. That's what books do. They bring the world a little closer together. Book bans push us apart.
Mm-hmm. And Jodi, how can listeners who might not be located in Florida, how can they fight back against book bans that are happening elsewhere?
Great question, because a lot of people keep asking me that. So the first thing you need to do is when your grandfather or your crazy uncle says to you at the dinner table, that's a hoax, fight back and say exactly what I said, that the minute you take a book off a shelf, even if it's temporary, it is still a book ban. Mm-hmm. You also should attend a local school board meeting. If you live in an area where books are being challenged, speak out against the banning. It's really important to speak out more than anything. Run for your local school board, if that's something that is interesting to you, because we need those voices. Use your social media for good. Hey, TikTok generation, get on this. Especially since, a lot of the TikTok generation, they are young and they are closer to the bans. It's affecting them. Well, we need to hear how you're feeling about that. How do you feel when a parent of another kid tells you what you can not read? Is that right to you? We should be hearing from kids who are actually affected by these bans. And you should also, if you can, start a banned book club. That's a great way to make sure that books are getting out to kids. If you're in a school district where books are banned, the Brooklyn Public Library offers a free online digital library card to any teenager so that they can have access to books that their school library can't provide for them. And I also recommend that people go to pen.org, pen.org/action. There are all kinds of actionable steps that you can take if you want to be an ally, if you want to write to government officials, if you want to put your names on petitions, if you want to in some way start to speak out against book bans.
So Jodi Picoult, newest member of the Newswitch Coven, best-selling author. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was a great conversation.
Thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much.